Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another session here at Boromis. If you can please take your seats, let's get into the business of the session. We're looking at upstream E&P. We're looking at the game changer, examining African gas is what we're spotlighting at this time. And we're already 3 minutes past the time we should start, so I'll just go over to it. I'd like for us to please join me in welcoming our panel, who is led by the moderator, managing partner Olaniwun, Ajayi and Co. Let's welcome Tominiyi Owolabi, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be moderating this very important discussion today. The game changer. It's indeed a game changer, examining African gas. I'm also very delighted that I'm moderating possibly the most gender-conscious panel I've seen since the beginning of this. Yeah, thank you very much. Encourage me, because most panels have been largely populated by males, and this is really the future of the oil and gas sector in Africa. Joining me this afternoon is a very distinguished panel, and let me just introduce them quickly so that we can get on with the business of the day. I've got Jonathan Dery with us. He's the CEO of Adarco Energy. Adarco Energy is a significant player in Morocco. They've got 17 permits offshore, and they are also a significant midstream player in the Middle East. Please, let's welcome Jonathan. Also this afternoon, I've got Firdaus El-Ghazi. She's the head of division for sustainable development and quality midstream activities, ONIM, which is the Moroccan national oil company. And finally, but not the least, I've got Dr. Bidia Ayo-Ibata. She's the head of joint venture government relations, SMPC Congo, which is a national oil company in Congo. Please, once again, you're welcome. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, one of the key things that have come out of the discussions, various discussions, keynote address, and various discussions that we've had since the beginning of this conference is the fact that Africa is poised to take a major part in the gas story globally. Africa has immense potentials, immense opportunities with the fact that it has total reserves of more than 17.8 trillion cubic meters. The continent gas production has been steadily rising. Since 2000, gas output in Africa has surged by more than 70%, and the growth is projected to be nearly 3% every year. And the expectation is that by 2050, Africa will be contributing 11% of global natural production. The fact also that Asia is increasingly hungry for natural gas, and some of the geopolitical happenings in Europe means Africa has an opportunity to be a key supplier to the export market. And that's what we'll be focusing on today. How does Africa develop and maximize its potentials and become a major global supplier? And I'd like to start with a lady, Firdaus. Considering all these potentials for gas on the continent, how do we transform these potentials into reality? What strategic actions should gas producing and consuming countries in Africa prioritize at the national, regional, and continental levels to optimize production, consumption, and utilize gas resources?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Happy to be here among my fellow panelists. So yes, indeed, natural gas is now recognized as a transformative asset for industrial development. So it's becoming imperative for both gas producing and gas consuming countries to develop and implement robust strategies to emphasize the value of natural gas within their economies. And the start would be through successful national strategies. This means enhancing infrastructure, improving techniques for gas exploration, gas processing, and also backing those efforts through stronger regulations and incentives. And at the regional level, it's important to develop cross-borders cooperations by building interconnected energy networks, by establishing corridors for midstream and transportation activities to foster gas imports and exports. And again, cooperation at the regional level is very important as it empowers us collectively. It helps us secure more favorable trade terms when in front of integrated markets like Europe. And if we push a bit and if we think bigger at the continental level, we will gain even more in trades and in negotiation empowerment if we push towards standardized regulations and standardized safety practices across our nations.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that you've emphasized infrastructure, regulation, collaboration regionally, and also standardization of regulation. And Jonathan, let me just come to you quickly. A key factor is infrastructure. Infrastructure is at the heart of monetizing and utilizing gas potentials. If there's no infrastructure, we can't do anything. And picking up from what Fedor said, what are the major factors inhibiting immediate significant gas infrastructure development and investment on the continent? And how can these challenges be tackled and overcome?
Thanks, Tominiyi. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, the immediate implementation of gas infrastructure in Africa, I think, faces several key challenges, notably financing, regulatory complexity, and security concerns. But financing remains the foremost hurdle. I think that African countries could leverage PPPs to attract private investment while managing associated risk and allowing the private sector to support this crucial infrastructure. Another challenge lies in regulatory inconsistencies, which complicate the implementation of large-scale projects. I think that a unified and transparent regulatory framework would be invaluable. And for that, by aligning policies across nations, African nations, I'm sure that we can create a streamlined environment encouraging, yes, the investment which is needed to reassure investors. Now, the second point, security issues, particularly in regions that are affected by instability, also deter investment. I will give you an example. In projects like the one, the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline, Morocco's stability and its tie with Europe make it an ideal transit point for African gas export. But I think that beyond these immediate factors, there are broader strategic considerations. Developing and financing gas infrastructure in Africa hinges on two elements: promoting the production capacity and ensuring reliable offtake. Correct me if I'm wrong, Fadaouz, but it is the main topic for the coming years we have in Morocco and all the West Africa countries. So, as you all know, meeting demands reassures investor, which is essential for securing investment needed to move forward. Now, something very important also that I want to talk about, the integrating natural gas into the Africa's energy mix is also a key priority. Without a political commitment to diversify towards natural gas, for sure, it will not be possible to develop a dynamic development to promote the gas export and coordinating efforts. I will give you another example, still in Morocco. Whereas 90% of energy sources are still imported, coal still dominates. However, you have gradual efforts that are underway to replace coal with domestic and imported natural gas. So now, let's look at the broader picture. I think that the creation of a dedicated organization, it's my point of view, for African gas exporting countries, similar to the OPEC for oil, could provide a united structure for promoting gas export and coordinating these efforts. And while regional bodies like ECOWAS, AFREC, or the African Continental Free Trade Area support transnational project, the African gas exploration and development through this initiative could help stabilize prices and create predictable growth, and also giving African nations greater influence on the global markets. And this framework could also bolster security along export routes by fostering regional alliances. And let's keep in mind that with 45% of Africa gas exported, this organization could also strengthen Africa's voice in the global markets, especially as regions like Europe seek new suppliers.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan, and that's very, very insightful. I particularly like the dedicated gas entity for Africa to promote development. And you mentioned three key factors inhibiting growth of infrastructure: financing, regulation, and security. And you did mention, alongside what Firdous mentioned, the need for a streamlined regulatory framework. And I'll just come to you, Dr. Ibata. Everybody's talking about regulation, and for us in Africa, what policy frameworks or regulatory changes are necessary to accelerate the development of gas infrastructure across Africa? And I want you to specifically, picking up from what the earlier contributors mentioned, how do we harmonize across the different regions? Of course, I'm the only non-French-speaking member of this panel. In Africa, you've got French, you've got English, you've got Portuguese. So they're different. So how do we create, the kind of vision that Jonathan has mentioned? How do we harmonize regulation?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I think before starting to try to harmonize across all the countries, each country needs first to start from its own background and to analyze what is not working in its country, come up with a plan, and when the plan is set up, we can all harmonize. To be more specific, I will give you some example about Congo. I'm from the Republic of Congo, also known as Congo-Brazzaville, and also most people in this room know that Congo is the third oil producer of sub-Saharan Africa. Though a lot of people don't know that Congo also has some gas. It's true that in the past, most of the gas was flared, but around the year 2010, we started valorizing our own gas by producing electricity. But in order to boost the gas monetization and valorization in Congo, we had to do some legal reform in the past few years. And making those legal reforms have helped us to launch the first LNG export project of the country. And in January of this year, Congo has become a gas exporter by shipping away its first cargo LNG. And one of the main reasons we did some legal reform on the PSC of the Marine 12 field, which is the field from where the gas is being produced for export, is because the fiscal and legal terms of this PSC were not really attractive to allow for a gas project to be developed. Once we change those fiscal and legal terms, the gas project could take off. But instead of working field by field on the different legal terms, we decided in Congo to work on a new gas code. We already have an hydrocarbon code that dates back to 2016, but the disposition in the hydrocarbon code regarding natural gas were quite minimal. So in order to boost the attractiveness of the sector, we decided to write a different code specifically for gas. And in order to be able to learn from our neighboring countries and to kind of harmonize what we are going to do and to see what has worked best for some other countries, we decided to tour some African country to see what they have done to be able to become exporters. So we went to Algeria. We work with Sonatrach because it's an all gas exporter, so we could learn a lot from that. But we also went to some new player on the field like Senegal to see what they did differently than the previous countries to be able to become, to be engaged so fast on the gas sector. So I really believe that each country should first analyze the situation in which it is, and once you know your weakness, you can learn from your neighbors, and all together we can contribute to harmonize all the gas system for Africa.
Brilliant. I like what you mentioned about the fiscal terms. If the fiscal terms are right, and regulation should really be about enabling investments. And I'll come back to you on that LNG point, but let me just go back to Fedros for a moment. The African Atlantic Gas Pipeline Project is a big one. It's headline grabbing, everybody's been mentioning it. Can you, and that's one example of infrastructure investment that can unlock the potential for the continent. Can you just tell us a bit more about that project and use that to give us lessons that the continent needs to focus on to be able to maximize our gas potential?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for this question. Yes, the African Atlantic Gas Pipeline, also known as the Nigeria-Morocco Gas Pipeline, is indeed a successful model that shows how investment should be calibrated in the gas supply chain. And the first aspect to emphasize here is the importance of technical studies and effective planning, as the front-end engineering studies for the African Atlantic Gas Pipeline has been completed this year. It was conducted in 2 phases, and it followed a thorough feasibility study that has confirmed both the technical and the financial feasibility of the project. And this phase cannot be overstated, as for large-scale energy projects, thorough and detailed engineering studies foster the way to move forward from a drawing on a board
Concepts, yeah.
to construction, or as we'd like to say it, from a project on a PowerPoint presentation to a power plant implementation. So this is the first aspect. Second one is investments towards social and environmental governance. And as we speak, we have survey activities on the field. We have environmental and social impact assessments on the field progressing in all 13 countries, part of the African Atlantic Gas Pipeline. And this goes beyond an environmental acceptability. This reflects that this project is progressing in a sustainable and a responsible way. Third aspect is investments towards the legal regulations. And to take an example, just last week, a major event was held in Abuja, Nigeria, was organized by ECOWAS, and all the national energy companies, the ministerial departments involved in this project were there for a steering committee that has formally agreed on the IGA and the HGA, which are the intergovernmental agreements and the host governmental agreements. And this is a strong and clear message towards investors, towards stakeholders, that 13 countries are aligning on how to operate this pipeline project, how to manage it through their national cross borders. And the fourth aspect, which is extremely important, is the financing strategy. For this project, the construction will be conducted by segment, and each segment will be financed and managed through an SPV, a special procurement venture, to properly address the specificities of each segment and to gather a variety of stakeholders and investors. And to conclude, indeed, for large-scale energy projects, the African Atlantic gas pipeline is a great example showing that it's important to progress in parallel with technical milestones, environmental milestones, legal and financial milestones, and no milestone can progress any further without the other.
Thank you for this, and it's really, please, please go ahead. I think, 13 countries pulling off this kind of transaction is one that is worthy of celebration, and I hope we still get a bit more time to talk about that on this panel. But let me come back to you, Dr. Ibata, quickly. You mentioned about the exporting of LNG from Congo, and as I mentioned when we started this, there's growing demand for gas in Asia, in Europe. A question to you is, because market is important. Yes, we've talked about infrastructure, but the market is important also for developing this potential. How should countries position themselves to compete, especially in the LNG market? What should countries do to capitalize on this demand and ensure that Africa is playing a major role in this market and securing the right demand going forward?
I think one of the main thing African country can do to ensure they access this market is stability, and we come back to legal reforms and everything. Once you can guarantee your partner that the contract that is going to sign with you is going to be stable and you are going to be able to produce the gas for several years without changing the rule of the game, it will be force for Africa, showing that we are here, we understand that you need some extra source of gas, and especially since the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and we as African countries, we can produce and provide this gas. And it's a bit challenging in this area when we are talking about energy transition and we are asking African countries to move away from hydrocarbons. But in Congo and for SNPC in particular, we do believe that natural gas is our energy fuel for transition because it's the cleanest hydrocarbon fuel of all of them. And we are going to be capitalizing on using natural gas. So far in Congo, about 70% of the electricity is produced from natural gas. And we know that in the future we want to add more sources of energy to produce electricity like hydro, but we do believe that natural gas can play a major role because we all know that in Africa we still have like 600 million people who do not have access to electricity, more than 900 million people who do not have access to clean gas for domestic uses. So we need to be consistent and prove to the rest of the world that we are not there just to play, but we are a strong actor in the market, and we can fulfill this gap that has been created in demand by becoming more consistent and engaging together, like what Jonathan said before, like having something that can put us all together and see how all those African countries can manage to work together, even if it means that putting in place some pipeline system to move the gas from one country to another to be able to have more volumes to offer it to foreign countries.
Thank you, Dr. Bata. And just picking up on that, and I was quite intrigued by what you said about Morocco still heavily relying on coal for electricity generation. Yes, we're talking about exporting gas from Africa, but Jonathan, I'd like you to talk about balancing the need for domestic use of the gas and this demand for exports. We know a lot of African countries are looking to gas as a potential revenue source, but we still need, as you mentioned, Doctor, over 600 million Africans are without electricity access. And so question to you is that how do we balance the ambition to become a major gas exporter for the continent with the need to maximize gas for domestic development?
It's a good question, because here you face two key challenges: business and domestic energy mix. Okay, and we have several examples: Senegal, Mauritania. Of course, with the current development that will intensify in the coming years the gas production, part of the production should be dedicated for the domestic market. Okay, but now, if we want to continue on your logic, Doctor, to talk also about transition in energy, using the gas, the natural gas, as a transitional energy, we need to integrate natural gas into Africa's energy mix. Okay, and as I said, without this political commitment, we will not do anything. And if we want to seek investment to develop the gas infrastructures linked with this energy mix and the gas transition, we need to attract the gas players. So we have several examples. In Morocco, for example, the country, as I said, 90% for the average of energy sources are imported. But we want to change the deal. And to do that, you have current players in Morocco, some operators, small intermediate company like us that are trying to make exploration and beginning the development and the production of some gas assets. So first, that will supply the domestic market, but as you can imagine, we all need to do business. The excess will be exported, but everything is regulated in a framework which is the petroleum agreement.
The focus first primarily should be domestic.
Domestic market, and then you export. And this is the same topic in all the African nations that are producing gas. We need to balance the two aspects. So I said business, political view, and energy transition. Okay? Without these commitments, you cannot do anything.
Okay, that's very true. But let me just go to Fidelis for a moment, and just riding on the back of that theme is, and from your experience at your company, there's potential economic and social benefit of increasing gas production beyond just revenue. In your experience, can you share with us what community engagement and strategies can be put in place that gas development can use to benefit local populations? So in terms of jobs and services, so that beyond just revenue to the government and powering power plants, what are the community engagements and strategies that can be used to encourage the community?
Okay. So yes, as you have said, community engagement is key to ensure that the infrastructure and the energy projects truly benefits the local communities. And in order to achieve that, there are, from our experience, two main strategies. The first one is to engage directly with interactions with the local population and the local communities to inform in a transparent way with all the phases of the project, to explain all the different external positivities that these projects are bringing, and also to hear back from the communities about their feedback, to properly address their concern and to implement all of this in the implementations phases. But the second strategy is complementing the first one, which is proving at the very early stages of any project that these positive externalities are already here. And the fastest way to do this is by job creation. Job creation through pushing forward the local content. So all the tender documents, the requests for proposals, the contracts, the scope of works should include a lot and emphasize a lot on local content, to rely on local companies to develop more job opportunities, to develop a skilled force, local skilled force for not only current projects, but also for upcoming projects. And you know, for us as African countries, our development is contingent upon the development of the quality of life of our local communities, which is contingent upon the development of industries and infrastructure. So, as Africans, again, instead of saying, yes, we can, we should be shifting the narrative and declaring that, yes, we will, and prove this by not only committing to the projects, the infrastructure project, but by delivering all the announced infrastructure projects that every company is committed to.
Thank you very much for those. And just let me come to you, Jonathan, for a moment. Just on the back of that, local content is key. Now, you answer, based on your knowledge of the continent. I believe there's still significant skills gap in the industry. It's a specialized industry. How can African producing countries address the skills gap in the industry and develop requisite indigenous technical capacity needed to participate in and benefit from the sector's growth?
It's a good question because, to my point of view, it's more important that talking about financing, infrastructure, policies, concerns, etc., because we talk about people. And without people, you don't do infrastructure, you don't have bank, you don't finance, you don't find investors, nothing. So this is the basis.
People first.
Yeah. First, we need to dedicate our attention to the people. So to unlock the potential of this African gas sector, the first thing to do, I guess, the producing countries must address the critical skills gap through education, partnerships, and policy support. And by establishing vocational training programs and specialized education within universities, I think it will equip the young African with the relevant skills. For example, in Nigeria, you have some gas-focused training institutions that provide the essential technical skills. And you have more programs. For example, you have master degrees in gas engineering in institutions like the INPG in Kinshasa, in Dakar, in Port-Gentil. So sometimes it's INPG or IPG, but this is the same concept. It's an oil and gas high-level schools. Okay, but with this kind of institutions, we can ensure that the workforce is ready to develop and to manage the gas assets. So the other point is consider that PPPs also, I come back to that, and the collaboration with international oil and gas companies are essentials. And these companies, they should support the local initiative trainings by establishing what we can call hands-up learning opportunities to invest in training the local workforce that will foster a skilled and indigenous workforce. And for example, what we can say, the clauses in the petroleum agreement, it's a good example. They could require further some fundings to support the local initiative trainings. And by that way, you can ensure that the foreign companies contribute to the capacity building. And at the level of the African government, of course, they can support the skills development by offering incentives, okay, that support the foreign companies that invest in training the local workforce. For example, you all know that you have policies like those in Senegal or in Ghana that requires that the foreign company prioritize the local contents, also to foster this skilled workforce. And the tax incentives and funding support can also contribute to support these local trainings. Let me give you an example, just to summarize all what I said, still in Morocco. The Morocco's experience in developing its phosphate industry, I think it perfectly illustrates the impact of such an approach. Beginning with very limited expertise, Morocco quickly built a skilled workforce and an international reputation in the production of phosphate through the OCP group. So why I'm talking about that? Because I think that with the right focus on education, partnerships, and policy support, African gas exploration and production can follow a similar trajectory. So by investing in education, fostering partnerships, and implementing effective policy, I am sure that African countries can bridge the skills gap and creating also an empowered local workforce ready to drive the continent's energy forward. And that is very important.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And I hear you. You said people first, before money, and before this. But I think money is very important. And I'd like to go back to Dr. Ibata about money. You know, we all understand Africa. Africa has its challenges. Uncertain regulatory framework, limited access to financing, infrastructure deficit, political instability, corruption, insecurity, amongst others. Bearing all this in mind, and going by what's happening in your country, what are the financing models or partnerships that African countries can adopt to attract a significant financing investment quickly? Because we need to bear in mind that energy transition, yes, there's been different talk about how Africa should approach energy transition, but there's a timetable, there's a schedule. And so how can we quickly, what kind of financing models, what kind of partnership can we follow to ensure that we can quickly develop our resources to move forward the continent?
I don't know if you were there yesterday at the opening ceremony, but the Secretary General of APO, Congo is a member of APO, it's also a member of OPEC, talked about the fact that APO is putting in place the African Energy Bank. And why we are doing that, it's because the Western countries, because we are talking a lot about energy transition, are threatening us of removing financing for all the projects that are linked to hydrocarbons. So one solution that APO member countries have found is to put in place this bank to be able to finance ourselves, our projects. Because we all know that Africa is only contributing only around 3% of the carbon emission, but the Western countries are telling us that we need to stop producing our hydrocarbons. So if we keep following what they're saying, in the next 2 or 3 years, we won't have any more money to finance our projects. And money is the backbone of those projects. So one of the main solutions, and I believe we need to go into that direction, is trying to find our own resources to keep financing those projects. And one of the main major solutions is cooperation between countries. And that's what we've started doing, and that's what we need to do. Like, we are talking, like, for the past month, we had, I don't know how many conferences in Africa, and we keep saying the same thing. But instead of just talking, we need to go and put those talks into action. We need to invest in a bank that will be reinvesting for the well-being of its own people in Africa. Because it's true that it's true that financing is important, business is important, but the life of our population is much more important. And as I said earlier, we still have in Africa more than 900 million people who do not have access to natural gas for domestic usage, more than 600 million people who do not have access to electricity, and in Central Africa, where Congo is based, it's like around 2 million people. So as long as we keep looking for financing outside of the continent, it will become critical for us to be able to attend FIDs on our project. So we really need to find the way of sticking together, having the same objective, and saying that in Africa, we still need to use our hydrocarbon resources just the same way as those hydrocarbon resources have helped the Western world in the past to reach its industrialization. So for us, sticking together, working together, and that's what we do for inside APO. We are really trying to find ways to keep producing our oil and gas, but we want to produce it in a way that will respect the environment, but we still want to produce it, and we need to finance it ourselves.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are gradually running out of time. I'll just give you 30 seconds each. Our topic is the game changer. Just give me your thoughts on how we can change the game using gas. Just your final thoughts. Start with Jonathan, and we just run through our panel. 30 seconds.
Very shortly, human capital is crucial for the African gas sector. And I think that the collaboration among various stakeholders, public, private stakeholders, can drive discussion on the future challenges and innovation in the continent.
Human capital.
Yes, and to fully unlock the potential of, and to fully realize this potential in Africa, we must focus not only on production and marketing, but also on nurturing the human talent that drive the continent industry.
Thank you very much.
It.
Firdaus,
I
30
would
seconds.
say developing infrastructure projects.
Infrastructure.
Not only infrastructure development by African for Africa.
By Africans for Africans. Thank you very much. Dr. Bata,
And
game-changing thoughts.
game-changing, using natural gas to end energy poverty in Africa.
Thank you very much. It's been an excellent panel. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your thoughts. And we're looking forward to changing the game with gas in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Point.
Another round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so